All right, let's do it. Welcome to whoever's here. There's 16 of us, I see. So glad we're all here. It's a beautiful evening. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Debbie, do you want to start us out with seeing who's here tonight?
Sure. Director Ray.
Hi there, I'm here.
Okay, Director Kelly.
Here.
President Fay.
Here.
Director Levesque.
Here.
Director Rawson.
Here.
Student Advisor Madeline Andrich. Student Advisor Kyle Schroeder.
Here.
Superintendent Sweeting.
Here.
All right, most of us are here. We'll hope Maddie shows up. Kyle, glad you're on board with this tonight. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion. Go ahead.
Go ahead. All right, I move that we approve tonight's agenda as presented.
And I will second.
Thank you. And Debbie, would you give a attendance call on that?
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
President Fay.
Aye.
Director Levesque.
Aye.
Director Rawson.
Aye.
All right, we're going to begin tonight with overview and learning targets. And Dr. Sweeting, you're going to begin.
Yes, good evening. So tonight is part one of a two-part study session. So tonight, part one, tomorrow night, part two. And so I will say that what we are unable to accomplish tonight, we can carry over into tomorrow. So we have that possibility if needed. And I will just say right up front that we did have some technical difficulties. So we're going to monitor and adjust a little bit or make some adjustments, and we won't have the breakout rooms, but we have an activity that will replace that. So just so you know. The learning targets for tonight are that we want to learn about our focus and priorities for the 21-22 school year. We want to identify our strengths and areas for growth based on the board's self-assessment results. We want to review and assess the board goals from last year, 2021, and develop new goals for this year, for 21-22, based on our self-assessment results and what we believe is important for us to set goals for. And we're going to develop, hopefully, if we have time tonight, a professional development plan to support the new goals that we've identified. So those are the learning outcomes for today. And I'm going to start. The first agenda item is setting the stage and starting the new school year. So this has been a topic at almost every kickback to school or professional learning opportunity that we've had. On district day, we talked about setting the stage because we started a new beginning. We started a new school year. We had no idea exactly what that would look like with having students come back 5 days a week full time after being in a hybrid mode and remote learning for the last 18 months. So we just wanted to set the stage, and I'm going to use the voices of some of our staff and students to help us in setting the stage. So with that, I'm going to, start with our why and our what. So basically we know that our anchor, our map, and our north is the strategic plan. It describes our why, and our why is our mission, that every student will be educated and prepared and inspired to graduate and be ready to pursue their lifelong goals or dreams that they have. And the what, inside our strategic plan, we have our goals and we have our metrics to measure those goals. We also have in our strategic plan our values. So our values are listed there, and they're not just words. These are how we engage. This is how we go about making the what work, because these are our values that that are the foundation. So we believe that we need to do this work in a culture of equitable practices, and to do that using an equity lens for making our decisions. We believe that this is a joint effort, that it's a collective responsibility from all of us, from all the students, from the families, from our community, from our staff, all of us, from the board and myself. It's everyone shares this responsibility of one thing: increasing the learning of each student and having them achieve that mission that we've set out before us. We also value that this has to be done in an environment that has continuous improvement, or continuous looking at what's working and what's not, and that we will engage in measurable cycles of improvement and talk about these things. Where is progress being made? Where is it not? Where are there gaps, both in opportunity and in achievement? And then we would also do this in a collaborative culture, that we will engage not only as a board, but our staff and community as well, and professional learning communities, where we come together and we ask questions about does this look like students are learning in this situation? And if not, why not? And what do we need to do next? And then also for those students that are excelling, what do we do next? So these are our values that are outlined. Of course, we're carrying on with our district norms, and these have never been so important in this world that we're in right now and been in. And so we are going to continue to assume positive intent. And this is hard sometimes, because there are polarizing opinions, and there's tension, and there's high conflict, but we must assume positive intent, because we're here for one thing: educating students and preparing them and inspiring them. That is our common ground. And we need to be a professional in all interactions, in whatever we say, whatever we do, and how we respond, no matter what kind of tension there may be, or the challenges that we're trying to deal with, or the problem solving that we're engaged in, and be kinder than necessary. Actually, we need to be operating in deep kindness, because there's a lot of wounds that have been taken place, of being in just this strange world of uncertainty for the last 18 months. And we need to be fully present and engaged and be prepared. So district norms. This is a new graphic for the board, but it's one that we shared during District Day, and we shared it with the district learning team as well in August. And so it kind of pulls together in a graphic our how. So in the center, goal 1, that's the dark circle, the navy circle there, it says student learning and achievement. That is why we exist. Everything pivots around that, everything circles around that to support that. So even goals 2, 3, and 4 of our strategic plan, so ensuring there's a safe and caring environment, ensuring that we are good stewards of our resources, and that we involve all partners in this work, so our parents and our community and the students themselves. All of that supports that number 1 goal, which is increasing student learning and achievement. And around all of that, in order to achieve our mission, we need to build the capacity of the staff that we have in our system. And so there's 5 colored squares or rectangles around the circle that describe some of the learning, the knowledge, and the skills and the understanding that all staff need to know and be able to do to have the capacity to promote the increased learning of each individual student in our district. And that's all connected by equity, which we define as removing barriers to learning and increasing access to learning, whatever that might be, from all different angles. The 5 rectangles around that are the building capacity, or they are our professional learning outcomes for our staff to support student learning. The one area is leadership and instructional practices. Another area is the professional learning communities. Another one is social emotional learning, culturally responsive practices, and multi-tier systems of support. On the next slide, I've taken each one of those 5 areas and just briefly outlined the outcomes in those areas. And there are underlined outcomes that seem to be very important for us to focus on this year, that we ensure that our professional development is anchored in those areas. So first, leadership and instructional practices. So the first outcome that we want for all staff in our system, and I outlined the first one, and they're all important and we work on them all the time, but the first one is that we all have a shared understanding of the appropriate tool that's being used to evaluate our work, our behavior, our performance for that purpose of increasing student learning and achievement, regardless of whether we're a teacher in the classroom, we're a paraeducator, we're a bus driver, we're a custodian, whatever that job might be, that tool that's being used to measure our performance, that we know that it's benefiting student learning. So that's an outcome. So this is just one of those areas that these outcomes that we would focus professional development on throughout the year to increase our capacity as a system to promote learning for each student. The next area is the PLCs, or the professional learning communities. And the outcome that I had underlined here is just that we support the team engaging in what we consider healthy PLC practices, and that we are modeling this, and a healthy PLC reflects on data. They don't just sit and guess, they actually bring in student work, or they bring in, maybe if you're thinking of our buses, maybe you're looking at what are the discipline referrals that have taken place on the bus. It's multiple ways to look at data, but you use that to talk about what is it that we need to, that we're doing well in, what are we not doing well in, and what do we need to do differently. The next area is social emotional learning. And we've had these learning outcomes basically for 5 years. We've been developing professional development around these, some over time in different ways. For example, 4 years ago, we started to learn about trauma-informed practices, which is in this category of social emotional learning. And there were book studies that were taking place around the district to learn about what are some of the strategies to help, and just the understanding of the trauma that some students and staff go through and have gone through, and how does that affect learning, and what kind of a learning environment do we need to create. And then the last one engages in professional self-reflection and self-care. That's absolutely a priority this year, the self-care. And so you'll hear us on some of the videos that I'm going to share how important that is, and how the staff themselves and the students, but more, I think you hear it more from the staff, how much taking care of themselves and how just developing that sense of a community is so important as we move forward. The next area, culturally responsive anti-racism and inclusionary practices. We've been working on this, and this is going to be a journey that we engage on for a long time. And the ones that are underlined, a shared understanding of inclusion and inclusionary practices. We still have a cohort team. We are part of a state cohort where the team is meeting on a regular basis to ask the question, how can we be more of an inclusive environment where all people are included and in meaningful ways. And then the final one that I underlined there is integrates culturally responsive practices into daily work. The last one, multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS. The first bullet's not underlined, but the board themselves selected last year to learn more about this. And I think we're going to continue to do that, because we're just getting started to understand the universal design for learning and what that looks like, and what does that mean in a learning organization. But the one that's underlined, the first one, focuses on social emotional learning and academic needs. And we've developed this plan already, and the board approved it, the academic and student well-being plan that focuses on this area. And then the last bullet has to do with just students receiving the specific focused interventions and intervention within the school day that meets their needs. Now, this summer we had summer school that was outside of the regular school time, and that's important too. But what are we providing inside the school day that will support their needs? So those are the adult learning outcomes, what we would hope. And there's actually, I can send this to the board too, because I'm not sure if you have this document. We've shared it at one time in the past, but I'll share it with you again because it's been updated. It's fluid, it's been modified somewhat, as well as I'll send you the graphic. So before I go on and talk a little bit more about what's ahead for this year, any questions about the tools that I just shared?
Dr. Sweeting, where's our, I think we said we were going to do STAR. We're going to do something as an assessment in this year to kind of see where we are. Are you going to talk about that kind of next as far as that, the board goal B2, which is around the assessment and kind of seeing where we are post our distance learning 2.0 to kind of assess the entire district?
Yeah, we're going to have some time to, as a board, to look at our goals, that one included, to assess where are we on that. We won't have all the data because we'll have the end of the year STAR results, but we're getting ready right now to do the SBA again. That'll be done. But tonight there won't be as specific of the data that you need, but anything that you need more of, we can get. We need to, like Carrie Henderson Burke, she'll have an opportunity to share in the future about that because we're still gathering. okay, let me think here. This is the 9th day of school, the school year. Okay, so I'm trying to, and that's really in person for the secondary. It's only the, Carrie, are you on? Would you like to say something about this? Okay.
I was going to jump in and so the STAR testing window is open right now through the 28th of September. So we're coming up on the end of it. So we should have some data to report middle to late October by the time everybody finishes and we get it assembled.
Great. Yeah. So I just want to kind of set the expectation of kind of when might we see kind of the lay of the land post distance 2.0 to see it's not going to be it's going to be a data point, but at least it's a place to start. We're not expecting to the expectation is not great, but I'd rather know the facts than assume the worst or assume the best.
Agreed. I think the kids are going to tell us what we need to know.
Exactly.
We do follow up with a really quick SBAC assessment window, as Chris just referenced to, during the month of October. It was kind of a tough decision to go ahead with STAR testing because I don't want kids to spend too much time in assessment, but SBAC testing is abbreviated, pretty significantly abbreviated. And then we didn't want to lose kind of that momentum with STAR because it was such a tough implementation with distance learning and all of that. So we did go ahead and decide to keep STAR 3 times this year and do SBAC twice. So not easy, but I think they'll both lend us some usable data about where kids are right now.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. So we started the new school year remaining hopeful. And we started the school year reflecting on the lessons that we have learned and learning from the lessons or the challenging situations that we were placed in during the last 18 months. We've started the year listening to the wisdom and the expertise of others. That includes Dr. Spitters from the health department. That includes, there's been, through OSPI, there's been speakers that have come through and shared the wisdom that they have had as far as helping learning to happen during traumatic times. And of course, we have our own experts right here in Arlington, and we've listened and continue to problem solve together. One of the things in starting the new school year, and I've seen this as I've been out in the buildings, is maintaining a positive growth mindset. and knowing that, I mean, just the failure can help us be better. And there's things that we didn't sometimes don't turn out exactly the way we wanted. And I happen to have been in a couple of buildings, even the first day of school, that things didn't quite go the way they wanted. And they worked so hard to plan, and it didn't quite go the way they had planned. But guess what? The day went fine, but it wasn't quite exactly how they pictured it. And they maintained a positive mindset, a growth mindset. We are committed to our mission and our plan. And we are listening and trying to learn as much as we can from what our students have to say, our staff, and our families. And on District Day, we shared some videos of our students and our staff answering the questions: what lessons did you learn? What support do you need? And what hope do you have for the new school year? And those are really, I think some of you may have heard them. I shared the links, but I'm going to share a couple of them again tonight, because they're the best in setting the stage. They provide us with the best information about what we need to do, what support is needed, and the lessons that have been learned, to hear right from their voices. So we're going to take a minute here. And we're doing a little bit of a transition, because right now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Debbie's going to take over, because it involves on District Day, this was another growth opportunity. On District Day, the videos were kind of garbled. The sound and the pictures did not match. So we think we have this under control, but we shall see. So the first video is the students sharing the lessons that they learned from the last, year and a half. Let's see if this works. She has many steps to do to make this happen. So it's like each time she shares it, she has to click probably about 5 places. So just be patient, she'll get it.
What lessons have you learned during the pandemic?
Well, I've really learned that I should not procrastinate, and I should really stay on top of assignments, and really just try to get them done as quick as possible so that I have time to do other things.
I've learned that if you're new to an area during a pandemic, social life is pretty hard. But other than that, because I've done physical alongside online, it's not as hard as compared to a lot of other students who have never experienced online before.
So what is something that you've learned this year?
I learned about time, money.
Recently, I have learned that it's pretty hard to go out in public, being a part of the LGBTQI, furry, and Black community. It's very hard because people, for some reason, don't like us just because we're living and breathing people just like they are, and they don't want to accept that we're also people.
I have learned so many lessons, but I think the main lesson I have learned is that family gets you through so much, and that it's really even when you're going through hard times, you can find a positive in that. Before COVID, my dad was super busy with school because he's a teacher and my mom's a teacher as well. And so I didn't see them much. My dad would always be coaching, and it was really nice to be able to spend quality time with my family.
It's crazy. For the first, I don't even know, 6 months of the school year, I didn't see anyone, which was really weird. But now, I'm at least happy to see some people and just have that social interaction with teachers and students and stuff like that.
I guess the challenges were doing things more on my own and having to, you could still ask questions like email. That's kind of a little bit tedious and all. So I kind of learned to do more stuff on my own.
Online school was harder than it would be for a normal teenager because I have a kid, so that's different.
I have learned a lot more boundaries in this COVID, and I have learned to better keep my house clean.
I've learned how to divide, multiply, and some fractions. And about technology, I learned how to Zoom, how to do work from my home, and how to message my teacher if I needed anything.
A few lessons I have learned from the pandemic this year have been math and fractions and computers and technology. But I also learned that I really miss going back to school 5 days a week.
Well, I learned how to multiply and divide, and I learned how to believe in myself just a little bit more.
So I think that's awesome. She learned how to believe in herself a little bit more. Perfect words. So those are the lessons learned from the students. And the next video that we're going to watch is the lessons learned from staff. But I just wanted to give a moment to, if anybody wanted to share that something hit home when they heard one of the students say something. So I know for me, I guess I was just grateful for the last comment that she could, she learned to believe a little bit more in herself. So with that, Debbie, I think we'll go on to the next video, which is our staff and the lessons that they've learned.
What lessons have you learned during the 2020-21 school year?
Probably the biggest lesson I've learned is to relax a little bit. Really, I was always just making sure everything ducks in a row, perfect, and you just kind of had to let that go with this past year.
Students who were really good students didn't show up to class, and it was shocking to me and to them. They were surprised. I'm not doing well. I'm usually an A student. They would sometimes cry on Zoom and tell me, that this isn't me, that, don't be mad at me. This isn't me. This isn't me. This isn't who I am. So they were shocked, and I was shocked and didn't quite know how to help them. But the more they spoke to me, the more I tried to kind of work the lessons around what they needed.
The importance of just making connections with kids, first of all, and just reminding me how much that affects what and how they learn.
I didn't realize how important human connection is. As a school counselor, being able to come to school with our students every day, you can't take that for granted, because never did I think that I would experience like life working from home, trying to communicate with our students remotely. So I know now how important it is and how lucky we are to be here back in person, and the importance of that connection.
I think there's kind of two big lessons that I learned. One is, noticing the difference between Zoom classes and in-person classes. It's just a world of difference, and that whole social element of learning, it just stood out so starkly how that was missing in so many ways from Zoom. And don't get me wrong, we learned a lot over Zoom. We had our classes and they were functioning, but it just lacked an element. Now that we're back in school, it's back, and it just is so much more joyful as a teacher to have the kids here. My job is so much fun again. And for the kids too, right? They've been wanting to be with their classmates for so long, so it just brings a lot of that joy for the learning back, which I'm so appreciative of. So and I would say, something else I reflected on over this year was how central my relationship with each kid was to how successful they were. So we're a small school, and a lot of these kids I've had for a few years. So it was just so nice to have that bank of a relationship with each kid that I could draw upon when we were at a distance. It made a big difference, and it just makes you realize teaching is all about relationships.
When it comes to just teaching and students although I have always thought we're pretty flexible here at Weston, we took flexibility to a whole new level. So it's been, and the students have, I think, realized that they are flexible, even if they didn't see that in themselves before. So just that was one of the huge lessons.
The biggest thing I think I've learned, and I've seen my colleagues learn, is truly how strong we are. When you look at strength and it's all of its parts of being flexible and being resilient and being like, you know, steadfast in the moment, I think that we really figured out that we are flexible. We can change at a moment's notice, and we're resilient. We can come back and realize, oh yes, this is where we are supposed to be, this is who we're supposed to be with, and kind of get things back to normal after a very not normal year.
I would say the biggest lesson I learned was the value of relationships, with our students, our families, our colleagues. Definitely also want to give a shout out to my 5th grade teammates, Susan, Deneen, and Morgan. Definitely could not have survived the year without them. They are exceptional, as well as a shout out to my admin, Jamie Miller. She's our new principal. So definitely, I think those relationships, they really do matter, and they count for so much in what we do.
Just the value of PLCs and my team. I would not have made it without them, and I think they'd say the same about every one of us. It was great. Everyone had different strengths and different ways. Everybody brought something different to the team. So I want to give a shout out to my team. Amy, Rachel, Katie, you are all awesome.
I guess one of the main things I've learned is that we all really need each other. You know, we're all spokes on the same wheel, right? I mean, we're all valuable, we're all needed, and it takes the whole team, you know, to be supportive here, to be successful with the students' education.
So there were some very important messages that we heard. So I just like any of you to even just one word, what word stood out, or what message stood out? What are some of those lessons that staff learned?
Relationships.
I was going to say the same thing, Judy. It was all about relationships and not being alone and not doing it by yourself, but really being a team. I heard that all a lot.
Yeah. And flexibility, they talked about being flexible and resilient. And I think Suzanne said being steadfast, you know, in the moment when things were really uncertain. And then just the idea that we're resilient. So that's those. I've watched those videos many times, and every time I watch them, I just really feel there's some emotion there, because the staff, all of our staff have worked so hard during this last 18 months, and now to ensure that our students, that their learning is priority, that we're removing barriers, and that we're increasing access, no matter what the world may bring, no matter what the challenge is. And it's not easy. And I know at times they're tired, but they are resilient, and I'm very proud of them. And so I just wanted to share that. There's a couple more videos that now we're moving. Those were, you know, reflecting back to the lessons that they've learned. And now we're going to move forward, because we're laying the foundation. We're setting the stage for this new year. Is that what do they need? What support do they need as we move into this new year? And here's the students. The students are first to share.
What do you need forward into the 2021-22 school year?
I'm really looking forward to hanging out with more people and being able to actually read facial expressions and get to know people more.
I'll be able to meet a lot more people, and plus I know there's people in in the other group that have very different views than me. So I'm excited for that, because I'm a very curious human being.
Are you excited to be back at school 5 days a week next year?
Just people not really harassing each other or bullying each other. Just everyone having a good school experience without any trauma happening or something.
For me, I think it's really being able to communicate, not just through email, communicate more and be able to stay after school. We can stay after school now, but some teachers like leave, and it'd be nice to stay after school more often so I could talk to my teachers about like getting my grade up. I mean, my grades are pretty good, but like talking to them about assignments that maybe I didn't do so well on.
We'll be able to see a lot more people at one time, so that should be fun.
I think in the beginning, for next year, I think it will be like, what are we doing kind of thing, because everyone's coming back together. But I think after a while, I think it's gonna at least hopefully return to normal.
I would rather be doing like our work on paper, but there's too much contact for that. I mean, it's better because it's in a learning environment and not a place where you're getting distracted all the time.
5 days a week of learning and a great teacher. I need supportive people at school and in my life. I also need to get back to working hard at school 5 days a week.
Well, I need a really good teacher who would help me learn and grow my mind.
I am looking forward to meeting new people, which I certainly will. And I am also looking forward to learning new things, because I heard that the next teacher for 4th and 5th graders is totally loves science, and I'm like, yes, my type of classroom.
I love that, and I want it be just, awesome that we have a student every single class, no matter what the class is, they're saying, yes, this is the best class I get to be a part of and the best learning ever. And so, what they needed, well, most of them said they need to be back. They need to be back 5 days. That's what I heard. They need to be back so they could have communication. Did anybody hear anything else? What else? I did hear some, be respected for who they are, be accepted for who they are. And so I heard that in the words too. So next, we'll hear from our staff. What do they need? What do they need for this school year?
What do you need support with for the 2021-22 school year?
I feel like one of the things that as a school, and probably all the schools need for support, is time together as a staff to just bond again, because we haven't, even right now when we're all at school, we don't ever meet together, right? Like there's not any really good bonding time. So I would like, and I've talked about this with our, administration, like having some meetings, not meetings, but like just getting together and really just being able to hang out and doing that, because we haven't done that for years, and really bonding as a staff, because I think we need that.
I am super concerned about their mental health, and I don't know how to help them. And I told Marilee Herman this. I said, I need help with that. I need professional development, because they're telling me things. One of the good things through the Zoom was the chat. It was anonymous. They could tell me things. I would do a mental health check-in and they could just type it out. Or they would start a conversation directly with the class, which was good, but they would say stuff. I'm like, oh God, I don't know how to handle this. And it's not like the pandemic is over. It's not like we're all suddenly going back to this wonderful, beautiful normal. There's so much to address. I'm worried over the next couple years what it's going to be like. And I think I want to focus more on having fun and being together than the big learning. There's always the big learning, but I think I need mental health help for them.
I got a chalkboard and kids in front of me. That's all I need.
I think being at Weston, we've got such a small team and we work really, really closely together. So in a lot of ways, we work together as a team to get to know each of our kids, and some teachers have kids in their classes more than others, so we can collaborate, we can come together, we can figure out what we need to do to support the kid, and then connecting with outside resources, with mental health counselors, making sure that we're helping them access, the resources that they need to stay safe and healthy.
I think there just needs to be an understanding, like we were not able to get through as much as we normally do because of the ups and downs of this year. And as great as it was that we had the technology to teach class, it's just not the same and it's not as engaging and interactive for the kids. So just having support to kind of fill in those gaps and move forward in a positive way. Like, let's not focus on, things that this year fell a little short just because of the craziness of the year. And I'd say, I guess from like the school community and families just continuing to place their trust in us that we're going to help their kids get to where they need to be as we go into the new year.
I think the biggest thing, and it's actually, I think being a CTE teacher, it helps because I have access to different avenues and different ways of providing learning opportunities for them. I just think I'm going to continue to try, and I'm going to have to continue to be creative about those relevant learning opportunities that, yes, it might not be the same sequence that I would have done it because, we had missed a little bit of time, but there's still relevant opportunities there. And so it's just going to be, I think for me, reaching out to, I have awesome community members, industry partners through CTE that I've been waiting to be able to get back into our classroom and have, share their experiences with my students. So those are kind of the areas that I think I'm going to try and leverage.
I've always struggled with these questions of how can someone else support me. I'm very much a lone wolf, and I'm going to get it done. If there's a problem, I'll solve it. And so I guess the biggest thing, if I'm going to be completely honest, is just, hey, a bigger budget for all of the arts, yes, and just to be let to do what I know how to do best.
I think what we need is supports from our building admin, of course, making sure that we have them to go to when things come up that are probably not, the best situations, support from our families, also support from our students, because whether we teach preschool or we teach, high school students, knowing that your students are there with you matters a ton. And then also support from our district leadership in order to be successful and achieve our goals.
Building relationships with the families in the community is what I'm looking for, and their support as well. These are challenging times, so we all need to support one another and give a little grace because we're all kind of learning new things all the time. So I would say just building that communication and that support with them.
Something I need, coffee, obviously, always coffee, so. But, the Arlington School District's great. There's the things that I've needed, I just speak up and they seem to magically show up pretty quickly. I feel very fortunate for that.
Well, that's amazing. I just appreciate their staff, just being brave to tell us, what they look forward to. What stood out? Anybody want to share what stood out?
The line that stood out for me was that we do what I know how to do best.
Yep. But she does want a bigger budget for the arts, which is good. Anyone else? What else stood out to others?
Support from the community and families. I heard that a couple times. And time together, time with kids, time to get to know the kids and the staff to get to know themselves and each other and kind of get to know the new, whatever we are. It's not normal, the new abnormal.
Right. That's about it. Sherry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I like the fact, and I think it's very key that you build relationships among the staff. I think that's so critical because it's kind of one of my professors that said something like, you build the relationships before you need the relationships. So even your newest members to the team, you need to find that time to bond. You need to find that time that's off of the school topic where people just have that fun side and that light side. And that's critical because you have each other's back when there's trust and there's camaraderie, and you have to nurture that. That takes time. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I also find ways, whatever that looks like in our current state as well as moving on to the future, but just include the families. I know the newsletters are wonderful, but just anything we can do with like that physical contact, that connection with our community, I think that's going to continue to be critical because then people have a greater understanding of why certain decisions are made and compassion for each other.
Thanks, Sherry. Mark, were you going to say something?
I just was reminded of the NEA president saying, you know, when the guy asked her, what's the one thing you need? And she said, that's easy, less people who think there's only one thing we need. And so I think that you saw a lot of diversity in what people are asking for, because, you know, truly there's a lot of different things that different people need from a support perspective. So I think I guess if I had to put it in, if we were to say one thing, it would be the agility to be able to give the people what they individually need, right? It's not the equality, but the equity, right? So we need to figure out what each person needs and then figure out how we deliver that, not just across the board something that everybody gets. And I think that's the crux to the success here, is because it's not just one thing. It's what each individual person needs.
And you know, Mark, you've touched on the multi-tiered systems of support. It takes that a system where you have multi-level of support needs for staff and for students, because we're a learning organization. We're about learning, and everybody comes from that from different angles. And so you're right, absolutely. Any other comments? The last video really focuses on what do the staff hope for? What do they hope for this year that we are in? And I think they say it well.
What do you hope for the 2021-22 school year?
I hope that everybody, teachers, students, all that, recover emotionally from what we've gone through. I also hope that one of my personal passions is focusing on and driving forward with equity and diversity. And so I hope that as a district, we keep on that mission, because it's important for all of our students and community.
I want us to all take these life lessons and somehow make it better, make things better, make our community better, make people happier. My focus is always on the environment. So can we take these hard lessons and somehow come together and achieve a goal? So maybe just setting little goals and trying to achieve them personally, selfishly, would help me. So maybe it would help them too.
To finish it safely.
Continue building the culture that we started working on, and then things sort of shattered, obviously, with COVID. But my hope is that with everybody here, we can continue to build that and do some of the things that we do as part of our tradition. So our Thanksgiving pies, our holiday party, all of the things that really make us Weston and make us unique. Like, I look forward to doing those things and having everybody back on campus.
I just would love to see more of kind of those school community-wide events happening again, you know, where we get to go out and do field trips or do lessons across classes or across grades that, you know, we just weren't able to do this year because of restrictions. I'm just so excited for that community piece to reemerge, and it is reemerging. It's just, it feels very slow and steady right now, so it'll be great to jump into that in the fall. And you know, I love how we learned so much, just not only how we can streamline things with technology, but just, you know, because we had to wrestle with that student apathy and get them engaged, we came up with so many great ideas for units that are going to be even better in person. So I'm excited about that too.
I just want us to continue to be able to once again nurture and build relationships with our students, because that's how they're most successful. I mean, we need to do this together, and it's really, really hard to do it when we're islands, and that's what it had felt like for so long. So it's, just building the relationships.
Being able to reflect and heal. I have a sign on my bathroom wall that I've had up there for years that says, "Grow through what you go through," and it's so cheesy, but I look at it every day, you know, and I had it up when my mom was sick and passed away, and so seeing that now and being reminded of that every day helps me get through this time and being able to say, okay, what did we learn? And not to forget this and to take advantage of the fact that we are going to have all this time together and to not take that for granted.
My biggest hope is that we continue moving forward with, again, our diversity, our equity, our social justice work, and that we make sure that every building within Arlington Public Schools is one that is open and accepting of all its students and its staff.
I think everybody needs to remind themselves to be kind during these times.
My biggest hope for the school year is that, people just remember how to be people and to treat each other with respect and kindness.
Kind of abruptly, but so the hopes for this year, and we're just getting started. And so what did you hear? What was the hope that you heard? I'm practicing wait time. Kyle, did you hear something hopeful there?
Yeah, at the end, he talked about people being people, and I think that that's a big thing, especially last year. It's something that we could definitely improve on. At least I could as a student, and I'm sure that many others feel the same way. So I think that should be a big thing to hope for moving forward in this coming school year.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Suzanne made that, she's got that plaque and it says, to grow through what you go through. And that's a growth mindset, that we are going to grow through the challenges that were presented. And I also loved that the one teacher said from SVLC that the lessons that they've created that were created during this online time are even going to be better in person. So I think that's awesome. Any other comments about the hopes that the teachers shared or that the staff? We had a variety of staff there. So with that, we're going to take a break, but during the break, the reason why this is so important to hear the voices of our students and our staff is because we are leaders within a system of people. And so, yes, we have policies and yes, we have procedures, but they are to serve and be beneficial for the people in our system. And so the next part of that we're going to work on tonight is we're going to look at some, data about ourselves as a board team and self-assessments that we did ourselves on ourselves, and then the collective results in order to help the people, in order to serve the goals within our strategic plan and increase student learning and achievement, and to provide those resources and the tools and the environment that is needed to benefit the students. So take a break. I think we're going to take just a 5-minute stretch break, and we'll come. Judy, does that work for you? For 5-minute break?
That works. It's 6:53. So we'll be back at 6:58.
Why didn't we just make it 7 o'clock? That makes it easier. Okay, thank you. All right, everybody should be back, I hope. The quote that you see on the screen says, moving on is a process, moving forward is a choice. And there's a slight difference between the two. Moving on is letting things happen, and moving forward is making things happen. And Disney says, I'm going to scoot this over a little bit so I can read the whole thing. Around here, however, we don't look backwards for very long, but we do look back to understand, and from the lessons that we've learned, we keep moving forward, opening new doors, keeping doors open, and doing new things, good old things too, because we are curious and committed, and curiosity keeps us leading down new paths. Now, I don't know if the board has received them yet, but if you haven't, you'll get a lanyard, because all staff has received it, that says we're going to keep moving forward this year. And that's the emphasis that we have, is that we're going to keep moving forward. So this is the end of at least this segment about setting the stage and starting a new school year. And these are students from Pioneer this year. They were, Gary Sable took this picture, and it's actually on our district website on the top of the banner. And we're going to keep moving forward, and we're going to ensure high levels of learning for each student this year. And what a great group here. And they're excited to be back, and they're outside. So at this moment, they didn't have to wear masks, and they were not together for more than 15 minutes to take that picture. All right. This next section is about digging into the board self-assessment and the goals that we've developed and professional development. It's important. We had to change the format a little bit without the breakout room. So this is going to take your support in making this happen in the way that we're going to change it up. So Debbie Montgomery sent out to you just before the meeting an email that includes the self-assessment results, as well as the board goals. They are also, for the audience that's here, they're attached to the board plate in the board docs. So they're accessible in many ways, but for the board members, it'll be important for you to have that document so you can review it, because in the next moment, we're going to dig into it. So the purpose of the board self-assessment is that they can we can check ourselves and the practices and the things that we're doing, if they really truly align with the work that needs to take place for the strategic plan and the efforts that we have and our mission set out that's outlined in the strategic plan. Every year, the board in June takes time to assess themselves individually on 5 standards. And these standards have been set out by the Washington School Directors Association, and they are very inclusive and exhaustive and comprehensive. And so we take the assessment individually, and then we combine those results, which was attached to the board plate, combine it to find out how we're performing, in what areas of each standard and the elements underneath each one of those standards, where are we performing. And not only that, but the tool shows what has been our self-assessment over this is the 5th year. And so it shows where we might have grown over time in those areas. So for this next activity, normally I would have you break into a breakout session, but we're going to have to do it a little bit differently. So for the next 10 minutes, and we're going to attempt to just watch and make sure that you're on track. And so Debbie's going to give you a 5-minute warning, a 3 and a 1, and we're going to check where everybody is for your standard that you're assigned. So for example, Sherry, Kyle, and Gina, you're assigned standard 2. So you would go into the document, the self-assessment results, and look at the elements in standard 2. And you just, what areas did we do well in? Where's our strength? Where's our areas that we have room for growth? And so Sherry, Kyle, Gina, standard 2, Mike and Eric, standard 3, Mary, Judy, and Carrie, standards 4, and Mark, Eric, and Gary, standards 1 and 5. So for the next 10 minutes, you'll do this. Are there questions? What on the results, there's different keys in there. So green says that we always do that item that's listed there. And then there's sometimes, and there's I don't know, and there's never. So those are some of the indicators. So take this next 10 minutes to review your standard that you've been assigned, or for the last group, standards.
Are we doing this in a group format?
We can't. You have to do it individually, Judy.
Okay.
That's what I was just.
Yeah, it would have been great if we could have. So, but you're in a group, but you're not together in a group. So with the webinar format that we are right now, we can't do it. We can't do the breakout groups.
Okay, 10 minutes on our own.
You're yep, 10 minutes, and we'll check in on you, see how you're doing. Just be prepared. I will ask the board member in each group, or there's a standard for it has 2. I will ask you to come back to the group and share one area of strength and one area need. So that'll be your task. And the board, I ask that the board members share what they found. You have 5 minutes left, 5 minutes. Three minutes. We're at 3 minutes. W- 1 minute left.
And that's the end of our session.
Okay. Normally, when we've done this activity, we've been in person and we have had chart paper around the room, and we would go and move from chart to chart and write down our thoughts. So it's a little bit different doing it in this way. And so, but we'll hear from each of you for your area, for your standard, one area or one strength or strengths and areas for growth. So let's start. We're going to go in order. So standards 1 and 5. So Mark, you're on point for this one. You've got 2 standards to share with us.
Okay. I usually just count the blues and the greens the same because it's, I rarely do everything always the same time. So blue and green are the same to me. But from a scoring perspective, you can see we did better in 2021 than 2020. When you drill down into the numbers, again, I just kind of look for, where did we have less yellow and where did we go down? So overall, the one growth opportunity, and not unsurprisingly due to COVID, is commit to a clear and shared purpose. So obviously, there's a lot more. We had a lot more diversity in our directions during COVID. So a clear and shared purpose in a 100-year pandemic, I would challenge any organization to improve in that particular factor. That said, we did have less yellow in things that, again, not unsurprisingly, provide information to the public that supports board decisions and discussions and decisions. We had less yellow there, not unsurprisingly. Lots more meetings, lots more public participation, et cetera, which then goes directly into standard 5, which again saw a dramatic reduction in yellow, right? So if you just look at the yellow scores, assume blue and green are the same, and look to see which yellow you had in 2020 got smaller in 2021 from a dramatic perspective, you'll see that 24 to 8 in standard 5. So yes, of course we had a lot more engagement with the community, albeit not necessarily a great root cause, but at least there was more engagement. So that's standard 5 from an engagement perspective. And again, I didn't necessarily see growth opportunities for more community engagement on the self-assessment. I mean, I could pick one of them, but every single one had less yellow from a change perspective in standard 5. So, if I wanted to say which one, is different, I guess, would be the ensure the public is well informed of the board's roles and responsibilities. So that went down. And so in standard 5, so we had more yellow in 2021 than we had in 2020. So again, 100-year pandemic, confusion on what the board's roles were, what's a state mandate, what's a board of health, what's a change from the school board. I mean, there's lots of different potential issues associated with where we were and what box we were on. Sometimes we didn't even know what box we were in or what our role was. So not surprisingly, that one went down. So overall, I think both, if you look at just the overall scores for 1 and 5, they both had less yellow overall, albeit just a little bit less yellow in standard 1 and a lot less yellow in standard 5. So overall, there was improvement in both. And like I said, I think it doesn't necessarily tell us anything we didn't know, but at least it makes me feel a little bit better about the results, because at least it tells us stuff we did know, which is there was confusion on what the roles were for the board, and there was a also no clear direction given. So both of those things are kind of, well, we already knew about the pandemic. So that's my report. I'm more than happy to add Eric or Gary's thoughts on that.
Eric or Gary, do you want to add to that? Maybe not. Okay. I will, just for the audience perspective. So yellow, the way yellow is described is some of the time. So when Director Rawson said green and blues are treated pretty much the same, green is always and blue is most of the time. And yellow is some of the time and red is never. And then black is don't know. So, all right. Thank you, Mark, very much. So let's go to standard 2, Sherry.
Okay. So standard 2 discusses set and communicate high expectations for student learning with clear goals and plans for meeting those expectations. Kind of in a similar boat with Mark on the contrast between 21 and 20. Just walking through the questions, there were several on here. Through policies and actions, express our belief that all students can learn. That was a pretty good jump. We went in 2021 to like an all 5 of always, from 20 being 3 for always and 2 for most. So that I felt like was pretty dramatic, that there was evidence that that the people saw that the policies and actions reflected that belief. There was improvement through policies and actions, common expectations, community. We communicate high expectations for all students. Again, that was a nice measured improvement from 20 to 21 in the category, kind of like Mark lumping those together, but I believe it was, all or most was 4 versus 2 from the previous year. So that was a good jump. So I would say those are some strengths in having the policies. And then the other side, for various reasons, the areas I think that I saw for improvement would be including the stakeholders when developing and revising district vision. That was question 26. That kind of almost stayed the same. It didn't show a measure really of improvement. Question 27, communicate its rationale, the board's rationale for decisions to the community. In 21, that was under always, it was like a 1. The year prior, it was a 4. So I put some of that responsibility or just on the essence of where we are with the pandemic and starting out our school year with not being in person, doing the hybrid and so forth. It was a choppy year. And so I kind of defer to the nature of where our school was and our ability to communicate. The final one I noticed too was this I thought was interesting on staff assessment, having policies evaluating staff based on student success. And that was an improvement. It was, that was measurable from 2020. So I thought that was good. And also an area, bringing it back to work on an area of improvement, continually monitor progress toward the goals and outcomes of the district plan. So it sounds to me in various modes of communication, just including our constituents, various community members on what our goals are, what the district plan is, how we plan to attain those, and keeping them as part of that process, and communicate well and communicate often. I think that's the key. And, I think you'd have to go to some folks individually with principals and maybe even staff members at the different schools to, just to see if if they're in agreement with those assessments. But I just thought that was interesting. Just continue to communicate effectively and let people know where we're at and what our intentions are and what our plans are for meeting those goals.
Thank you for mentioning that, Sherry. I think it's important that when we do the self-assessment, it truly may have nothing to do with reality, right? This is just how the board sees themselves. Has nothing to do with how the public didn't fill this out, the students didn't fill this out, the staff didn't fill this out. Nobody filled this out other than us. So to the extent this is reality, that's just kind of reflecting on how much we understood about the situation we found ourselves in. But I would love it if we had these answers and it was done by 5,600 students or 800 employees or whatever, rather than five school board members.
I don't know how. I think you're right. I mean, it's kind of like our scope, our range is so limited. I think it's good to do that. I think it's good to get all of our interpretations, but it's very meaty, and to feel like we're continually monitoring. There's many pots on the stove, if you will, and I think for me it's an awareness. I think if I have something in front of me and I see that, how well are we, and I feel like the board meetings are having Dr. Sweeting, make that, quarterly or something. It's just even this meeting tonight, it puts it in front of my face and it makes me aware of the many nuances that we hold as school board directors and awarenesses we have to have with the school community.
Yeah, I think this part's really important for net new board members, right? So at least you can understand, what is it that I'm doing other than showing up twice a month? Oh, it's all of this. This is everything that I'm supposed to be thinking about. And if you don't even know what the standard is, or you don't know what the standard is made out of, it pushes you to ask the question, well, what is this? And how do I gain that information so that next time I get asked this question, I can actually self-assess whether I have done that or not. But if you don't know the questions being asked of you, then you don't even know you're supposed to be asking these questions.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. Thank you, Sherry. Thanks for Mark too. It's interesting, there's 5 standards, but underneath those standards, there's these elements that are very precise. And they're not that simple, they're not precise. But I will say, this self-assessment, I liken it to the teachers and all staff have criterion for their evaluations. They have those in front of them, and principals have them, the district office folks have them. Everybody has the performance criteria. And this is pretty robust. The assessment for the board is very robust. It's not simple.
It's also research-based, right?
Mm-hmm.
So WASDA's basically put the self-assessment and said they had Chicago, one of the big universities, do a study, and it said that those school boards that do this self-assessment have better student outcomes. So that's the research-based associated with this. So while this is just 5 people and we're just putting our stuff out there, the research basically says that our result of our self-assessment are actually tied to student outcomes, and those boards that do better, the students in those districts do better. So I think that's an important part of the self-assessment that WASDA puts out there for their self-assessment, is that it's research-based and does have a relationship with student outcomes.
That's true. So I'm not sure, it might be hard for Mike, since he's driving. I don't know if he had an opportunity to review the standard.
I stopped and pulled over to participate.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
You betcha. Yep. So, but I am doing it on my phone, so hopefully
we can see you. We can see you and hear you, so you're good.
Yeah. So standard 3, and Eric gets to do 2 different things. He's a special guy. He's got 2 different groups he gets to be in.
Actually, you know what? I was supposed to fix that slide. It's supposed to be Brian.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I noticed that. I saw that there was nothing for Brian. He's so busy building school stuff. Hey, so standard 3, create conditions district-wide for student and staff success. So I'm going to go back to, so in general, my scan of this earlier today and the scan of this here in the last 15 minutes, it looks like Eric and I got an easy one in the fact that I think the board scored ourselves very well in many of these categories, with always coming out on top more so than previous years, which is excellent. What will be interesting to see is how that plays out next time after the whole hybrid learning year, and where we are at and coming up is what I see as, so like with everything, right, there'll be a kind of an anomaly, but I'm happy to see that, in general, it looks like we did well in this area. And are doing well, and then there's certainly some areas to improve on. It is hard for me to pick out those particular ones, but in general, there were many successes and a few areas that we can grow in. But that's good that we can. We don't have a lot of areas in this particular standard that we feel that we need a lot of growth in, and we can focus on some of the other ones.
Yeah, it's kind of, when I look at, there's question 51, which has been green, everybody, full green. So all the time it has to do with our budget, that we monitor the budget and fiscal status of the district. And for the last, 4 years, they have been all green. So that's good.
Yeah. But of course, we need question 49 needed some. We have some improvement on that with the with budget development and expectation for fund balance, which is, I'm sure, a topic Gina is very familiar with, and even more so as it's highlighted for our next couple of years.
Right. Well, Mike, thank you very much for stopping and doing that. So,
oh, you're more than welcome.
And I don't know if Eric has anything to add. So Eric, you might have been thinking you didn't know if you're doing 3 or if you were doing 5. And sorry, Brian.
Yeah, I was ready for 3 also. So thank you, Mike. But I think Mike did a great job summarizing it. And I didn't see, a lot of change, a lot of fluctuation from previous years either on that. And there's a couple, blue to yellow maybe, or something like that. But minor ones, I think overall, pretty positive standard.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you. Okay, standard 4, Mary and Judy.
First, can I stop for just a minute and go back to standard 3? The one that stood out for me also was number 36, evaluating staff and student success. And I looked at that and looked at the divergent perspectives on that one. And I think the problem with that is that the question is confusing. The question says, do we have policies for evaluating staff based on student success? And we go everywhere from green to red. And I think the problem is in the question, because I remember when I filled it out, I don't want policies for evaluating staff based on student success. So I don't think we understood the question correctly. So my vote was, yeah, we don't want that versus.
Yeah, I think what that means is that we do have policy, the TPEP policy, which is, it has in there how staff are evaluated, and there are student growth goals in that policy and in the state law. And so we do have policy that describes that principals and staff formally have the student growth goals. So that could be a direct line, at least to that. But I hear, Judy, what you're saying on that. It's just, we do have policy that describes that those groups would have student growth goals for their evaluation work. Ultimately, that's why we're evaluated on our efforts to increase student learning and achievement, whatever that might be, or creating an environment where students can learn and grow. So Judy and Mary, would you like to move on to standard 4?
Of course. Mary, do you want to start?
I would be happy to, Judy. Thanks. So standard number 4 says hold school district accountable for meeting student learning expectations. And I think the pandemic affected this question quite a bit, and all of the subsequent little questions that go along with standard 4. I wanted to say a couple really good things that I noticed some positive improvement in a couple questions. Number 54, I thought was awesome. It said annually review and make recommendations to the district plan and school improvement plans. And all 5 of us agreed that we always do that. And I think it was because we had those really fun breakout sessions at a school board study session. And we all got to learn about all the different school improvement plans and all the schools presented what they're doing. And I think that was really, really helpful. So I hope we continue to do that. And another positive thing that I saw was, what was it? I have to flip back a page. Number 55, publicly recognize the efforts of schools in improving student learning. And even though we were in the midst of a pandemic, that number went up. We had 4 that were always and 1 being most of the time. And I thought that was pretty awesome that we're still able to publicly recognize the efforts of school and what they're doing to improve student learning. There was definitely, of course, some room for improvement and areas of growth that are needed. Most of it had to do with assessing learning. I would say that the one that stood out to me the most was number 60, and recognizing or regularly review and understanding the criteria, assessment tools, and methods that measure student achievement and district performance. And I felt like that was almost impossible to do when kids were not in the building and teachers didn't actually know who the children were that were listening, and we didn't have a lot of assessment tools. So I feel like that one is just a logical conclusion of what happened with our school year last year, but it would be something that we could try to do more of this year and really understand and dive deep into that. And another one that stood out to me that I think was really interesting was number 62. And I don't know if you could see those tiny little numbers next to the little colors, but I counted 1 in 4 different colors, not 5. And there's 5 of us, and thought that was just a really strange little thing. Like maybe one of us skipped a question and maybe there would have been another color on there because it was very colorful, that question, how we answered that. Regularly evaluate and adjust resources and strategies for closing achievement gaps to maximize their effectiveness. And I thought we were kind of all over the place with that one. And one of us didn't even vote. So I thought that was really interesting. And maybe we need to look into how we evaluate the achievement gaps and how we close them. So I think that is really helpful for what we're trying to do when we're in this recovery period and trying to regrow relationships and see where the kids are and find out where the gaps are and help them grow. That's what I have to say. Thanks, Judy.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mary. You and I noticed exactly the same things, but I also noticed that on some of them, Mary, there were 7 instead of 4. There were 7 answers. So I have no idea what those little numbers mean because it was everywhere from 4 to 7, and there's not 7 of us.
Well, it's true, Judy. I'm wondering, I'm going to have to ask WASDA about this because they are the ones that pull the results together. The self-assessment, the student advisors took the assessment and then I took it, but they send us the results in 3 different formats: board, elected board only, elected board and superintendent, and then all of us. So maybe they got that mixed up, so maybe that was all the 7 of us, including the student advisors, or just including the student advisors, not myself.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to check that out. But you know what? That's a math problem, and it's a strange one.
But Mary, I noticed the same things. 52 through 56. We were all really positive in all of those areas. Review of district plan, and what I liked is in 52 was the coherence between the school plan or the district plan, and then the coherence between the school plans and the school improvement plans. And that just is so positive, that we're looking at that and we're aware of it. And also in 56, the superintendent written goals on specific outcomes for student learning. So that was a really strong positive area. And again, the worst in all 5 goals was 59 through 62. which is student achievement and how to measure it and the data and understanding it and what assessment tools and effective use of them. So that, and I don't think it's just because of the pandemic. I think that that's an area that we all need to understand more. What exactly are we assessing? What do we need to assess? What's important to assess? So that plays into not just assessment, but also into teaching and learning. What are the most important parts of teaching? What do we need to focus on? What helps students learn the best? What can teachers and staff do to best support learning? And I mean, that's pretty hard to define, but I think that's real doable in terms of defining what learning looks like, what activities, what does that entail? And it's an interesting thing to Google. If you just go ahead and Google that and say best practices in education, you're going to come up with pretty much the same thing over and over and over. And so I did that. And pretty much what it comes down to is group activities. And boy, do we need that in this coming up year. Long-term project-based learning, that was number 2. And we've discussed that over and over and over again. And so have our students that have continually brought that up. The third one is hands-on learning. And again, our students are saying that that's their best way of learning, differentiated. And that goes right to UDL and how we can differentiate that learning. And then the last one is relying on students' background, interests, and academic needs to guide our instruction. So I think that also our job is not just to look at the assessment data criteria, but the learning. And perhaps that's an area that we can forge more into and really understand and get a better handle on.
Thank you, Judy. So the next part is, and we have only about 8 minutes left of the scheduled time, but we could continue this tomorrow night because there is a agenda item to do that, or we could finish this next activity, which is looking at the board goals. So reviewing the goals that we had last year and determining based for each, we have a goal for every standard except for 5 this last year. Do we need to have a new goal? So we can do that now. It would take us over a little bit because and maybe we can take less than 10 minutes to review and assess the progress towards the goal. So I guess I'd need some direction, Judy, on what you would prefer to do.
I'm good with going over a little bit. I would like to go ahead and see if we can continue for the next 10 to 12 minutes and see what can be done.
Okay, great. And there is some value in that because you just finished looking at the self-assessment results. And so the idea here is that last year we did this and we developed the board goals, and we developed a board goal in each standard except, and actually 2 in standard 4. So there was 1 for 2, 1 for 3, and 2 for 4, and 1 for 1, and none for 5. That was just what we came up with last year. So what I'd like each of you to do for that same area that you just looked at, so that same area, that same standard, is to look back at and I think I have them, let me see if I put them on the next. I've got them individually. So for example, when we get back to talking about this was our first goal, and it aligned with our strategic plan goal 1, and it aligned with standard 1. So this would be, Mark, I believe that you would take a look at this during the 2021 school year. The board members will increase their understanding of research best practices and use this knowledge to approve policy programs that align with these practices. So it was sent to your email. So that's for 1. There's 1 for standard 3. There's 2 for standard 4. And let me move back here. There should be 1 for 2. So if you will take the next, I'm going to back up here. We'll set it for, Judy, do you want to do 10 minutes or do you want to shorten it a little bit? Do you want to do 8 minutes?
Yeah, let's shorten it a little bit. And Chris, can you give us a kind of direction in terms of what email, where we can find these in our email?
Okay, so they're in the same places at the self-assessment. So either on the board plate, they're attached, the goals, the board goals are attached, or in the recent email just before the board meeting
3
started.
p.m. 3:28 is the email came in from Deborah.
So
It's just a
3:28
one-page
p.
attachment.
3:28 p.m. Look for a 3:28 p.m. email this afternoon from Deborah. Had 2 attachments. One's board goals and one is the self-assessment. Both are PDFs that are attached to that email.
Thank you, Mark.
And Dr. Sweeting, what I'm just still a little bit confused. So we're looking at that goal, and
so I'm going to go to, so your standard, let me find that. So this
I'm
is
B3.
Oh, you're 3. Let's go down to 3. So when you're looking, so for the next 8, is that what you're, no, you're
No, I'm
2.
actually, it's called board goal B3. So I'm B3 because that lines up with the set and communicate high expectations.
So whichever goal that you are assigned to, you go and you look at that and you just do a moment of reflecting. How do you think we did as a board? How do you think we did towards that? It gives you a list of possible evidence. You probably don't have that in front of you, but you can certainly use your knowledge of what we've done, of where do we stand? But more importantly, do we need to keep this goal? Does it align with the current areas of that need improvement? Or are we moving on from this?
Yeah.
You know,
So
so
I could go first already. So for board goal B1, responsible governance, lines with standard 1. We definitely need to keep it. What I would change would be the last line says participating in WASDA conferences and regional meetings. I would say instead of participating in the WASDA conferences, I would say making every board member complete the WASDA onboard training. Because I think that's what's going to be really key going forward, especially for new board members, is you can't govern what you don't understand. And so if you don't take the WASDA onboard training, you can't understand it. So I'm not sure how you govern it. We might as well just, Gina could come in and go, our budget is $2 billion this year. Okie doke, I don't understand. So all right. I mean, so you have to have, in order to do governance, you have to have some kind of basic education. And I think the WASDA onboarding classes are an excellent start. So that would be my suggestion to responsible governance.
and that could be very easy, Mark's the same goal statement, but it's, actually calling out the onboarding up in the dark area, where it's
It's called WASDA onboard. So I think every board member should complete the 3 WASDA onboard classes. I mean, they're going to publish over time lots, but right this second, I think it's much more important for board members to cover that when they first start than bloodborne pathogens or any of the other, required training that is done for the teachers. I think that should be like number 1, finish on board. Then you can go on to all of the other stuff. But as a new board member, I think that's really important.
Mark, I think you've set a new trend. I think if we just go down the line and we can all kind of just talk about it, and so great suggestion, Mark. Thank you. This is 3. Let's find 2. Let's go to 2. All right. So this one is holding school district accountable for meeting student learning expectations. And what we said is that during last year, the board will, on a regular basis, at least 3 formal meetings, review and understand criteria, assessment tools, and methods that measure student achievement and district performance, including disaggregated student data, and adjust the resources to close achievement gap. One of the tools that we used, or the methods that we used last year, was those round tables with the principals. That was just actually had 2 opportunities. There were 2 round tables to try to understand. Now, is it enough? That you probably need more. But in thinking about where we just did our work in self-assessing analysis, do we need to continue this? Is this I hear a yes.
Yes. I think we need to continue it. I think the piece I would remove is the board's purview is not about the how. So the SIP presentations are all about a how. I really think our time would be better spent talking about the what's our where are we with the what, rather than about the how. All right. So if I hear like, okay, so we're going to do, we're going to pull kids out and we're going to do, have a recess assessment, whatever it is, those are all hows, which is interesting to know, but the board has zero input on the how. So we should be focusing our time in the board meeting more about the what than about the how. So that would be my input on this particular thing. I think we definitely need to keep it, but I think we shouldn't have so much time spent on the how you're doing, but more of what are the results, right? So you chose a how. You decided this curriculum, you decided this intervention, you decided this methodology. Wonderful. Show me the results before, show me the results after. But talking about what you're doing without showing me the before and after results doesn't allow me, the board, to comment at all.
Right.
Yeah. And I think your question at the beginning of the workshop tonight, Mark, was that, you wanted to hear about the STAR results, those kinds of things. So it's that kind of information. So,
results. It's about the how. Results.
Okay. Now I'm trying to go back to 3. So this is set and communicate high expectations for student learning. And this is actually related to standard 2, but during the last school year, the board will increase communication of its shared vision of learning and high expectation for each student, and use the equity lens for making decisions and its rationales for decisions made with the staff using a variety of formats. So this was in that part where we don't always share our rationale, or at least we want to share it, but how do we share it for our decisions? And then what decisions do we actually share the rationales for? Because there's a lot of decisions that we make. But anyway, what do you think about this goal?
I think this is absolutely essential. I think you need to keep people on the same page. I also think, Mark, this is kind of getting more into the how, but you need to have all hands on deck with the same elevator speech, so that it can be your person in an administrative role. You can have a person at the principal role. You can have the district office level people, but we have to be on board and have a very clear message as one. And I think that the more we convey that with each other as this team, and then our community being constituents, our students and our parents, I think that conveying that message often and clearly and be the same.
Thank you.
I don't think we don't do that now, but just continue to perfect that.
I 100% agree. I think that one message was important. As you saw, you interviewed people, you got a lot of different things. No one said the motto. No one said the district goal. No one mentioned the things that we're talking about today in all of the videos, right? No one. So we need to make this more than just things that the board talks about.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to start with, in setting the stage for this year, is to hear the voices of the people we serve and what we're about. Okay, let's see. We did 1, 2, 3, and let's see, there's 4. So this is that will support as a board increased public input during the budget process. I think that, this was a little challenging. I think Gina does an awesome job. And I think as a board, we have a great desire for people to be well informed. I know Gina was working on some videos, and we didn't get to do the road shows because of COVID, but I still think that that's a great idea. So what are thoughts on this goal here? I have to say, it was the one goal we had all green, or at least there was some, praise there, but.
I think we did a great job. I think the one thing we could do to focus this more is the post middle school, right? The what's it going to take? What's it going to take to get the levies are for learning and bonds are for buildings, and how do we get the community more engaged with the fact that this place does not run on sales tax alone, and that you're going to have to commit dollars to fix the the major construction issues that we have. So as we focus on dollars at the board meetings and et cetera, I think we should keep upfront, not just around once every when it's time to get more money, we're back at them. But the money discussion should be something that we're having all the time around, what's the impact if we don't have levy? What's the impact if we don't have bonds? And talk more about those money issues in addition to our normal budget cycle.
And Mark, just to dovetail on that, I know we're getting an influx. I don't know numbers. I know Dr. Sweeting and my husband and people like that know these numbers, and Brian, but there is an influx of new people. And what I distinctly remember was a conversation with, I think we had some kind of community event. It was online. And I remember the parents at, I want to say Eagle Creek or Kent Prairie, the parents from the elementary schools know that their kids in a matter of years are at Post or Haller. And they're terrified to go to Post because it isn't the building they want for their children. And what I think we need to get, like Mark is kind of saying, is we need a consistent, constant message saying that we know the need is there. The need has been there for some time. So, let's pull our resources together. And I don't want to be a negative. I don't want to be a, Debbie Downer and say, guys, here's your building. If, here's the effect if we don't set the money aside or we don't get this bond approved. Here's the building, 10 years out. I don't want to present that on the negative. It's certainly an attack. It's a choice we can make. But I want to say, this is what the possibility is. Let's show pictures of that building. Let's show how awesome those 3 buildings on essentially that one campus can be and the benefits. But I think if we make this message for our new folks that are moving in saying, we need to invest now. This is critical because your kids in kindergarten now, but this will be the school they'll be at for middle school. And I don't know. I just think we need a constant campaign. Just like I see these big billboards. My husband comments were by Post. He goes, your tax dollars at work. People want to know where their money's going. And then when we call them up and we, hey, we're voting, we got the levy going on, we got the bond going on in February. People are educated because the information is in the community.
Yep, you're absolutely correct, Sherry. And I am, we do have those big signs up on our sites that say your levy dollars at work. And that's intentional to let people know that there is the capital projects levy was passed and there's work being done. And it's awesome. So, but thank you for that reminder and that it's so true.
I think that's the best thing that we did this year was put up those signs as you pull into those schools. And you can see those big signs showing exactly what our levy dollars are doing. But Sherry, I loved your idea of let's put another sign up and say, this is what passing a bond, this is what post-middle school could look like if we passed a bond with a big, humongous sign. That's a great idea. And just keeping that message strong, because not only are we going to need that post-middle school, but we're going to need another elementary.
That's right. So, I just feel like we got to go for the newer to Arlington voters. I can't throw a stick from my house and not see new apartments going up. I'm stressing over the fact that poor Safeway is going to somehow have to feed all of us, in this community because we have no Hagans, which I keep pushing for. But yeah, we're in such a time of growth, and I want to get that excitement. You're here in our town. You're happy to be here. Let's go. Let's build this, So I want the schools to be there. I want them to be there for their kids.
And we could just get a whole new committee going right now, Sherry, in terms of levies and bonds and how are we going to keep this message going? Because it's going to come up real soon, sooner than we think.
Yeah. That's true. Okay.
Without Judy and Mark.
There was one more, I think this is it, the board goal 5. I don't think we've talked about this yet. This was an additional one that's related to standard 4, and it has to do with, and we noticed on our self-assessment, some of them didn't really, this is not as clear, but that the public is well informed of the board's roles and responsibilities. And we wanted to get we did get revised bios on the district website. We had created a video, but it still needs to be, I think we have former board members in the video. We need to get the new board members or the current board members in the video. So what do we think? And then participating in community voices, which has taken place and been very valuable. So what do we think about this?
I think the community voices is fabulous. I think we need more community voices, more staff voices, more student voices. We need less board voices. No one cares. The board should be a mirror to the community that we serve, right? If you want to put a bio out there, put a bio out there of McElroy. Put a bio out there of Glen Eagle and put that in District 5, right? Who are the people who are in District 5? They could care less about Mr. Rawson. I would be interested in who are the people in District 5? Who are the people in District 1? What's the median income in District 1? What's the median income in District 5? Who are they? Who are these people? So I think if we want to put a bio out there for the district, it shouldn't be about the person. It should be about who those people are in that district.
Kind of, Mark, you're talking about like a snapshot. Gives us a snapshot of the demographics.
We just did the census. We're going to redraw the districts anyway. District 5 is going to change by September. We have to do it like by October or whatever. We have to redraw these districts for who, based off the membership. So, but if you want to say, yeah, here's your board member and here's how to contact them, that's great. But my life story is not as interesting as how do I bind everyone together? Because it's much more likely that if I'm on the website, I'm looking at who my District 5 people are, I'm going to have much more in common with who the people are in District 5 than Mr. Rawson, right? So if we want to build community, we should be describing the community of the districts so that when people go and look at Mike's district, they can see, that they're on 5-acre plots or whatever the information is, but we should be talking about the districts, not about the people.
I hear you. Okay, so I'm not sure what that will look like, Mark, but I've got something in my mind what that could be. But we would certainly want to ensure the public is well informed. I think of the roles and responsibilities, but also why I think it's important for them to understand, why. And so when it comes to the bios, maybe it's more of your why instead of the what. Like, why do you serve? Why have you decided to volunteer your time in the midst of chaos and uncertainty to serve in this community?
There you go. That's fine. Like I said, that's great. If you want to tie it together, that's great. I just think it should be more about the community than about the person. And like I said, I think we should highlight more. I would love it if on our website, all the videos you just showed are great, but I don't know if we have releases from people to, make them public or whatever. But I think everything we've done with student voices, I've gotten so much out of student voices and staff voices and community voices, and I would like to make that experience accessible to those people that weren't there, right? So, even if it's just a matter of, hey, new board members, all right, here's what we learned in staff voices, from talking to our people who work in the landscaping department and those people that work in the maintenance shop and those people that work in the kitchens, and just some way to make that voice information more valuable by putting it into a format that's more consumable by whatever constituency we want. And you're going to have a brand new constituency, a brand new group of people without Judy and I here that at least need to see it so that they understand how important it is.
Good point.
And Mark, I would also say that to me, it also can serve as a bit of a time capsule. I think it'd be great to look 5 years, 5 years from now, look back at this. I constantly get in Google to put photos on my phone, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that was 4 years ago, but I think that would be nice because that in itself, these videos of each other, of students and staff voices, having that snapshot in time, like, wow, we were still in the middle of the pandemic and look at the upbeat attitude, look at the sense of promise and hope that people had. I think that's great. And I do agree with you. Finding a format that makes it totally, you click on that and you're like, boom, there you go. That's where we were in September of 2021. And then I think it's a great way for us to check back. Like, are we still like, did we move forward or do we just move on? You know,
Yeah.
I think that's a great.
Forward versus on. Yeah.
And I love that we're starting student voices back up. I'm going to be at Eagle Creek on Friday, and I'm excited to do that. But I really am hopeful that we'll get our staff voices back up and running and get a schedule so that we can get them. We can do every single one of our schools again this year. So I think that's important. And I know that staff, you know, can do that online and a format that way. But I think the in-person that we did last year with staff voices and the year before was so valuable. So hopefully we can get that up and running again this year.
So President Fay, the next part of what I have is for professional development, and we can certainly do that tomorrow night. So because that will take us probably another 20 minutes. So I think we're at a good stopping point because we've talked about the goals, and what I might be able to do is take the feedback that was provided and create some draft goals that I could share tomorrow night, possibly, and go from there and do some more refining of these goals.
That sounds.
I weigh in for just a second on this 5th goal. I just had some thoughts and I just want to share. I think engaging our local community and ensuring our board transparency, we've done a lot of that this year in totally different ways than what we wanted to do. Like our goals, I think we did engage our community, and we are now having recorded Zoom, YouTube board meetings. So I feel like we are more transparent and we are more engaging than we were in the past. But I still think that there's still a lot of education to the public of what our roles and responsibilities are. Sometimes people come to me and saying, I don't like the way this is going with my one kid in this one thing. And I'm like, I just go to meetings. I can't fix anything right here with you now, but I could pass it on or you know, have you talked to your principal? And just having people know what the board members' authority is, how we only are in charge of one employee as a group, and we do things only as a group, and we don't hang out as a group without being in a public meeting. Just having that awareness of what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do, what we can do, what we can't do. I think that would be really helpful, because I think it would be a good reminder for us, but then it would also be good for the public to understand where our authority begins and where it ends. So I don't know if that needs to be tweaked at all, but I just think that would be really helpful and important in how we engage with our community.
Thank you, Mary. So with that, President Fay, I'm at a stopping point. So I'm going to
go and ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Great. It's been motioned and seconded to adjourn our evening tonight. Our next meeting will be tomorrow, same time, same place. And Madam Secretary, could you call for a vote on adjournment?
Director Ray?
Aye.
Director Kelly?
Aye.
President Fay?
Aye.
Director Levesque?
Aye.
Director Rawson?
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.